Okay, folks, here we have the full protest in front of the Marriott in Boston with cops and placards and lights on and, oh wait, none. Zippo today. Okay. Now, lest you think that that's just because they've been putting the Marriott out of business, I point you to the Westin that has its one typical light beacon or light pylon on there. Otherwise, none. This thing's empty. This thing's empty, and the one next to it's empty. Isn't that great? Stupid are these people. Now I'm about to go shopping at this lovely supermarket in the middle of all these empty buildings, and I bet I have to wait in line to get... We start at the Prudential Back Bay Oasis in the city of Boston, what we on Team Witter now jokingly refer to as being the thriving metropolis of Boston. Sometimes, often when we're in Boston, we punctuate our wonder at the alleged baseball world champion Red Sox by wondering where the fans actually come from to pay the exorbitant baseball salaries. And as we wonder, we mock those who fail to notice the lights in the apartments and hotels are almost all off, by saying the phrase that fits in, "Go Red Sox." Fortunately, I don't even need one hand to count the number of people around me, including official bratty know-it-all kids who've ever even said, "Hey, the lights look off, why is that?" Or, "Look, Mommy, the lights are off, how do people live in those buildings?" The number of people is zero, has been for 18 years. Witness the idiocy around the Marriott, the core in a presentation that is supported by the people who drive around and don't notice the empty-looking buildings, and the alleged security professionals who don't notice the empty-looking buildings. What's most amusing in this day of counting eyeballs for television viewership is that one almost never sees an HD TV running in an apartment or hotel room, nor does one see a computer running through by looking through the windows. Look at the people around the Prudential Center noticing nothing unusual through the glass walls and ceilings. Why would they notice? Lights around the concourse went out in March 2001. From dawn twilight to dusk twilight, no matter what the weather. And the heat's also off almost every day, even during the coldest months. And HVAC is off in the summertime. I have plenty of videos on this, but we'll skip that for another point. There were several ways to go about presenting what we have to present today, a compendium of a year and a half of videos which was compiled by picking up an iPad and walking around, nothing special, while taking pictures of various forms of pretense, all interlocking around buildings that, as you can see, appear to have almost no lights on, when the lights should be on. There are many videos already on file with comments from me, usually about light bulb counts. It's rare that a hotel building has more than 3 lights on, usually it's 0 or 1. And heater counts we did in the wintertime, and Christmas tree counts and people on balcony counts, all pretty grim. I've mercifully shut off the volume on the videos because even I get tired of hearing the primary research scientist in me saying that building looks empty or that building is obviously empty. One thing you may ask when you look at these videos of what seem to be human beings walking around and driving and standing in front of empty buildings is, what is all this traffic, and who are all these pedestrians that never seem to look above the first floor to notice the lights are out? What are they doing? One thing can go with saying now, which is pretty clear. The people who pretend on the streets, on the sidewalks, drive around in cars are just like the people who stood in front of the Marriott Hotel protesting for better wages in a building that hasn't looked occupied in 18 years. It's all the same thing. These cars, too, for example. Empty these buildings are. I think there was one light bulb on in the larger tower there on the top floor when I took a picture of this. It came on later. And I think there was one in one of the buildings on the left. But the cars, they just drive around totally oblivious to the fact that nobody could possibly be in these buildings. They just can't. This is a cold day. It was about 40 degrees out. No heat's on and no lights are on. You can see it, and if you can't see it, then I suggest you stop watching the video because you'll never get it. And this is Beacon Street. You can see one light. 2 lights are on in doorways,
and all the lights are off in the apartments. It's the same old all the time. This, by the way, was a very interesting street, but that's a story for another time. I've told it elsewhere. This video is intended to be a video log accompaniment to the piece that I wrote 2 years ago on Oasis mentality dementia. I mean, basically looking at what must be the mentality of these people who drive around and walk around and don't notice the hotels or the apartment towers are empty looking. Not even looking empty. Look at all the distraction they have going on. This is on Com Ave, February 1st, 2018. And here we are at the edge of the Charles River at the Mass Avenue Bridge, looking at Kendall Square on the left and downtown Boston on the right. As you can see, not a lot of heat's on, is it? And what we get to study is the Oasis. They're the bikers on the Esplanade. Of course they should be there. Cars driving around with their lights on because safety first. Look at all those empty buildings along the Esplanade. And now we're going to see a few foot pedestrians crossing the bridge to maintain the alleged continuity between the oases on the Boston side and the oases on the Cambridge side. MIT people don't notice the buildings have the lights off. And here's MIT across the river. Oh, joggers and a bicyclist and cars. That's the academic quadrangle. And here is what it looks at. The basis of science is asking simple questions. For example, why do the lights and heat appear to be off when it's 28 degrees out? They never ask. That's why I call this particular location the dumbest acre in human history up until I came to Quincy in 2009. There's empty Beacon Hill. See any heat on there? How about in the skyscrapers? Obviously, our friends are acting as if they're part of a occupying army of some kind. In a actually civil war, they are engaging in civil behavior, are they not? Well, not really. Actually, what they're doing is engaging in what we call law-abiding criminal behavior. Notice, while they're ripping me off and denying that the buildings look empty, either by implication or assignation, it doesn't matter which. What do? They drive on the right side of the road and they pay attention to even jogging traffic rules. Now this chart's kind of definitive as to what a main body occupation system is and what it looks like. If you take a look at the different parameters. This is in the essay that I wrote, and I'll just refer you to that instead of explaining it here. Now back to empty Beacon Hill. The Oasis is on the other side of the river that I'm taking the picture from. Oases are a bit like bases that invading armies use, except the oases are for mostly civilians who are backed by proximate use of force by a military or quasi-military police force. Examples of oases include restaurants, bars, hotels, stores, and most places where one pays for a hospitality or a service, but also out on the road if they're trying to do what they're trying to do here. In a main body occupation system, one option for post-invasion occupation is to use the oases as the front lines in a civilized offensive strategy. As I've experienced these oases in surrounding areas, everything outside of the oasis these days is considered to be street. And yet, given the volume of people in a city as opposed to a rural area, even the street is treated as if it's an independent oasis, populated with geniuses vouching for how important their work is, or what a nice place they live in, or whatever. Even at the academic quad at MIT, looking across the river at no lights and no heat on in the entire city of Boston. I suppose I should say it's obvious if one just follows me around for a half hour or so. There is no office today, and no office work worth doing, except for television news presenters and pretend politicians who have either real or pretend jobs. Oh, look at the idiots on the bridge. Where are they coming from and where are they going to? Look at the idiocy of Boston Common. No lights, no heat. Look at all those buildings. That's the Ritz Towers there, right in the middle of the photo. It's not exactly inaccurate to note that the morons have brought their oases onto my properties as part of a main body occupation war system, a system for stealing my lands and surrounding me with reasonable and unassailable pretense. Occupation of property is primary in the de facto war against Team Winter. The Oasis system is secondary. It is the front line of the system that the morons have used to keep those of us on Team Winter prisoner while we tolerate the abuses of principally my trusts. This is a strategy that allows people into my presence to make their own decisions and get something right or continue to be wrong by their own professed standards. Now you're looking at the back bay with no heat on, 28 degrees out. Look at that. Just commenting as we go. And this is the Fenway. It's the Berkeley School, I think, is that. Then we have the Victory Gardens down past the monument there. And then that whole row of been empty for years apartment buildings, which you'll see a close-up of now. See, no lights, no heat. The usual. 18 years. Here are the new buildings on Boylston, a few hundred yards from the right field wall of Fenway Park. You can see, no lights on. And we're coming up on the old buildings, which will, right there. You can see there are a couple lights on the top floor. That's it. Star Market's filled with food and all kinds of people can go shopping there. Oh, and look at this sub-zombie shopper. She was even carrying nerve gas to kind of move out of the way for a bit. Unbelievable. When stuck for what to do, fill it up with jackhammers. This is pretty much a standard. We're coming up on the empty Longwood Hospital section. How about that Obamacare? Talk about no lights on in the buildings. There are never any doctors. And don't get me started with scrubby people and what that actually shows when they walk into hospitals with their scrubbies on. I'm going to make a few casual comments and that's about it for the rest of the video. This is Brookline Avenue, looking the opposite direction at the hospital complex. You can see how dead it is. I think this was a Saturday. And then if you just turn to the right here, oh, there we go. We're looking at the Mission Park project, the back of it. You can see there are no lights on in the building. Look at all the cars. And this is the empty Brookhouse complex. That intersection is one of the most dug up in human history. They dug it up for 450 days of my going through there. Unbelievable. We can see the whole area is empty. Here I show Mission Hill, which has been empty for years. The old games at the Baptist Hospital, the ones that kind of ring a bell. That's the VA hospital there on the right, and Long Pond. In the distance is the I don't know, it's 40-story tower on the Jamaica Way. It's had the lights off for 18 years. It was a different day. We're back at Boston Common. This is the Frog Pond. And you can see how thin the Oasis is. That doesn't matter so much. And that's what the buildings look like all along Tremont Street there. The empty Ritz Towers and all those smaller empty buildings. No lights on. Presume empty, right? No heat either. That's Beacon Hill, no lights, no heat. standard for years. This is 6th Avenue, looking back at 54th Street from 55th. That's the Warwick Hotel. You can see the lights are off. This is around, I don't know, must be about 8 o'clock in the morning. There's one light on there to the left. No, that's a leaf. I'm sorry. There's an apartment building over the supermarket. Another apartment building between 56th and 57th. You can see all the way at the ends the Ritz. Nothing. And if you ever watch Fox Business News, when they're up on one of the top floors looking down 6th Avenue at the park, that's the park there in the distance, you can see the lights are basically all off, all the way up to the park from 54th Street. Occasionally they'll turn a couple on at the Warwick, especially if I say something. Now we're in Central Park. That's Time Warner building with CNN headquarters in it. They look out the window, look at all these empty hotels and empty apartment buildings all along Central Park South. It's true on the east and the west, as you'll see in the rest of the video. That's the Ritz. Anybody home? I think this was like August 4th or something like that, last year, 2017. Cars ring the park, oblivious, and look at all the joggers. Don't even ever look up. They do, their brains decay into I'm not sure what. They don't look up, so I don't know. This is the west side now. Same as the east side. Nobody home. Here we are at Columbus Circle. That's home of CNN. Look at that. They never notice when they look out the windows. Like, evidently. I'm not even sure they're up there. Look at this. Anybody home in these things? No lights, no HD TVs, no computers. Oh, wait, there is a light. One. I left out my commentary. I'm not going to refer to it here. No help for Jake Tapper's earnest fact-checking or Brian Seltzer's morality here. Unbelievable. How about Chris Cuomo? Does he ever go to headquarters and take a look around on a dark day? It's pretty funny. And well, there's that. Oh man, look at that right outside the window. They don't notice. Okay, one of these buildings is under construction. That would explain it all, wouldn't it? Wait till you see how we start going down toward Lincoln Center. Think I'm just going to be quiet from here on. This is down by Lincoln Center. Notice all the tourists, some with cameras, with great eyesight, and don't notice what's around Lincoln Center. Just kind of what's on the plaza, and that's about it. And if you think the surroundings here are shocking, you should take a walk up, I think it's 10th, up past the Lincoln apartment buildings. Those things are enormous and they're all empty. It's overwhelming, even for me. All right, now we're in Lower Manhattan. This is the first building on the left is the Ritz Residences on West Street. It's all off of West Street. Look at all this stuff. I think there were a couple of lights on. This is about 7 o'clock in the morning, somewhere early August. Now we're in the Battery, looking up at, or looking over westward at Jersey City. That's the Goldman Building, the thing that looks like a giant phallus, the big one. All those empty buildings around it, nobody ever notices. Same's true with their main headquarters building, which is in the World Trade Center area. We're working up the park right now in Battery City, coming up on the marina by the World Financial Center. You can see all these buildings, same old, same old. See any lights on? I didn't think so. How about some HVAC? Don't need that. Large screen TVs? Computers? Who needs any of that? And the Time Inc. building and looks right out at these things. So does the CME building, but Time Inc. is something Benioff just bought. And he goes to headquarters, he looks out at this stuff on a dark day he doesn't notice. Doesn't make me wonder about anything. You know, where are all those voters, by the way? Never mind all the customers for all kinds of stuff. Can't even afford to keep the lights on. How's Con Ed still in business? And that's CME Group on the left. On the other side of the marina by CME Group, that's what they look at. See anybody home? They're great with financial services, though, according to their advertising on CNBC. This is up by the ferry. They just got off the boat from empty Jersey City. And they're going to these buildings that don't have anybody in them. And if you take a look up, you'll see there's one light on in the corner about halfway between the tree and the top of the building. And that's the Conrad Hilton. It's a nice looking hotel, and it had, I think it was 5 or 7 lights on it. That one actually looked okay for, I guess it must have been about 8 o'clock in the morning right there. And here's the park just a little further north in the empty neighborhood. You'll see it. Me and the seagulls. we're at the corner of West Street and Chambers Street now, and that empty neighborhood, they had to come up with a distraction. And they did, in the summertime, there was some guy rented I think it was a Home Depot truck, and he was Becky? I can't remember. And he ran a couple of foreigners over on bicycles right at that corner, just south of where I was standing. Goldman Sachs with the lights on the left. Look what they look out at. Nobody notices. I bet they're big in the real estate business. Oh, don't get me started. I took a walk down basically Clarendon Street from Ballston, which is this place here, all the way down to Roslyn and the Iwo Jima Memorial, where they just relocated it. As you can see, the apartment buildings and the hotels are all empty. There are about 50 or 60 buildings here. I'll just kind of let it run and not make much of a comment until I get to taking a look at Roslyn itself. That one's really grim. Okay, this is the FDIC building. That's not a set of apartment towers. And there's FedEx delivering to nobody home. We got mail trucks, and I think we got a UPS truck in here too. They always manage to get the trucks out there, but they never turn the lights on. And when they deliver packages, it's really hysterically funny if you know what you're looking at. How about that Amazon.com? Anyone see any large screen TVs on any of these buildings? I thought not. How about those Obama voters? I guess they're all imaginary. There's the highway. Now we're crossing the bridge over toward the military base, which that is. See it briefly. What's staggering about this is looking at the other side of the road in Roslyn from the military base. Huge empty apartment buildings all along the road with no obstructions. You can almost see, if there were anybody even looking out a window, you'd see probably their eyeballs. They're that close. Enjoy.
That thing's empty. One behind it's empty. Well, the one on the left actually has one light bulb. That's great. finally got pictures of it in the dark. Thank you, Jesus, or whoever put this together for me to have to walk around and endure. Clears my lungs. With all those buildings and all the other ones we see empty, how do I explain all this traffic and the bicyclist and the this and the that? It's not my job to explain it. It's their job to explain why I was wrong. There are 2 lights on in that building, not just one. There's one little pinhole light just to the right of the other one. It's about, I don't know, 15 stories up, something like that. Where does all this stuff come from? And why do they put so much effort into having nobody talk about the obvious? Well, you know, if you look at the land of the free as judgment, 500 years of judgment, and you look at us as being, what is it, 17 years almost on the other side, it's really easy to explain.